No electricity, no lights, no hope, until I turned a single broken solar panel into a glow that could power an entire village. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube family. Hit the like button and in the comments, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. Alright, now let's jump straight into the story. The village was nothing like the bustling city the boy came from. Dust hung in the air like a constant veil, stirred up by every step along cracked paths and dry, uneven ground. Tiny houses of sun-baked mud and rough wooden planks leaned slightly in the relentless wind, their tin roofs rattling as gusts swept across the village. The smell of dry earth mixed with faint rust from old metal. Sheets created a unique scent, one that spoke of time passing slowly, of lives lived quietly and simply. At the far edge of the village, away from the main footpaths, stood an old Quonset hut. Its curved metal roof was dented and rusted, catching the sunlight in patches that made the dents and scratches glint like tiny mirrors. Half buried in dirt and debris, the hut seemed almost swallowed by the earth itself. The wooden door hung loosely, swinging with every gust, creaking and groaning as if the hut itself was sighing from years of neglect. Most villagers ignored it, assuming it was worthless, a relic from decades past. But to the boy it was full of possibility. Every week he traveled 50 kilometers from the city to this quiet village. Life in the city was hectic, full of machines, schedules, and the constant hum of electricity and people. The trips to the village were short but deliberate, taken on days off from his part-time work at a small electronics workshop. The journey was long, tiring, and often hot, but the boy carried with him tools, wires, old batteries, and scraps he thought could be useful. His goal was simple yet ambitious: transform the abandoned hut into a functional workspace, using nothing more than his knowledge, ingenuity, and whatever materials he could salvage. On one such trip he carried a small, cracked solar panel he had salvaged from the city workshop. The panel had layers of dust, several bent edges, and a few broken solar cells, but it still had potential. Carefully he carried it across the village and up onto the hut's roof. Every step was calculated. The panel was fragile, and a single wrong move could destroy what little energy potential it had. The process of installing the panel was meticulous. First, he wiped away the dust using an old rag, then examined each solar cell under the sunlight. Broken wires were carefully stripped and reconnected, using tiny metal clips and salvaged connectors. He bent scraps of metal into brackets to hold the panel securely on the curved roof, and fashioned a wooden support system from discarded planks to prevent it from shifting during strong winds. He checked the angle repeatedly, understanding that even a slight misalignment could reduce the panel's efficiency. Patience was the key. One mistake could ruin days of effort. After the panel was installed, another challenge became clear. Solar energy only worked when the sun was out. Nights in the village were completely dark, and he needed a way to store energy so the lights could function after sunset. Using several old batteries he had repaired and insulated, he created a small storage system inside the hut. Each battery was connected in series to provide sufficient voltage, while a simple switch allowed him to control when the energy flowed to the light bulbs. To prevent overheating or accidental short circuits, he added a small fuse and manually tested the current flow. Every wire was carefully routed along wooden slats to keep it off the dusty floor and prevent accidental damage. By late afternoon, the first LED light glowed faintly in the hut. It was a single bulb, casting a small circle of brightness across the worn wooden floor. It flickered at first, but it was enough to illuminate his tools, the workbench, and his notebook where he documented experiments and observations. Using an old crate as a desk, he positioned the bulb above it, and suddenly the hut felt alive. Dusty metal walls and broken wood transformed into a workspace, a small but functional laboratory for learning and invention. The boy understood that the panel alone wasn't enough. To maximize sunlight capture, he built a small pulley system to tilt the panel throughout the day, following the sun's movement across the sky. He also added reflective surfaces made from discarded aluminum sheets to redirect additional sunlight onto the panel. These small improvements increased the amount of energy captured each day. During daylight hours, he worked meticulously with wires, bulbs, and scraps of metal, experimenting with small circuits, voltage regulation, and battery storage techniques. Each attempt was carefully recorded in his notebook. At night, the battery-powered LED light allowed him to review tutorials and plans downloaded onto his phone. Since the village had no electricity, the boy relied on trips to the city to charge his phone and download educational videos. These excursions were long but necessary. The city provided both resources and knowledge that he could not access in the village. Dust and wind posed continuous challenges. Tiny particles threatened to damage connections and reduce panel efficiency. To counter this, he built small wooden channels along the hut's walls to protect wires and connections from accidental contact with the floor. Metal brackets held the wiring in place, preventing loosening or accidental disconnections. He learned to observe and adapt to the environment, noting how sunlight fell on the hut, how wind moved through gaps, and how temperature changes affected battery performance. By the end of the first week, he had created a functioning setup, a single solar panel capturing sunlight, feeding energy into a battery, and powering a small LED light after sunset. Though modest, this accomplishment marked the beginning of a larger vision. The hut, once abandoned and forgotten, now had life. It had become a place of possibility, a laboratory and a sanctuary for creativity. The boy sketched ideas for expansion: multiple panels, larger battery storage, circuits for additional bulbs, and even small devices that could help villagers with their daily tasks. He imagined how the system could eventually power not only the hut but nearby homes, providing light, charging devices, and fostering learning and productivity. As he sat on the dusty floor at night, watching the single LED flicker softly, he felt a mixture of pride and determination. This tiny glow represented more than light. It symbolized perseverance, ingenuity, and the power of learning. Every wire connected, every adjustment made, and every calculation tested brought him closer to a larger dream, a dream of transforming a forgotten corner of the village into a beacon of possibility. As nights fell, the boy realized that the LED alone wasn't enough to explore or experiment fully. He needed a way to control when the light turned on automatically, so he wouldn't have to manually switch the battery each night. Using scraps of metal, old switches, and small timers salvaged from broken electronics, he began constructing a simple auto-on mechanism. The idea was straightforward. During the day, the solar panel charges the battery. When the sun sets, a small timer triggers the LED bulbs to turn on, drawing from stored energy. It took several attempts to get it right. The first timer he found was inconsistent, flickering the lights or turning them off too early. He dismantled it, studied the wiring, and rewired it using small copper connectors and insulated tape. Eventually, he combined it with a light-sensitive resistor, so the system would detect ambient darkness and automatically switch the lights on. This ensured that even on cloudy or windy days, the hut would always have a reliable light source at night. To prevent overloading the batteries, he added a manual override switch. This allowed him to disconnect the LED if the batteries were running low, preserving energy for important experiments or emergencies. Additionally, he built a small protective casing for the batteries, using an old metal box lined with wood, ensuring safety from accidental short circuits or sparks. Every design choice was deliberate, focusing on functionality, durability, and safety. During the day, he also observed how wind and dust could affect the solar panel's efficiency. He constructed tiny windbreaks using old wooden planks around the hut, strategically angled to reduce dust from blowing directly onto the panel. Small brushes and rags were used to sweep the surface every morning, keeping the cells clean and functional. These small rituals became part of his daily routine: inspect, clean, adjust, and improve. The hut itself began to feel alive. He cleared the floor of old debris and organized tools into makeshift racks made from scrap wood. Copper wires, screws, bulbs, and small metal parts were sorted into small boxes, each labeled in his notebook for quick reference. Even the corners of the hut where sunlight rarely reached were now functional. Small mirrors redirected sunlight onto work surfaces, improving visibility during daytime experiments. One challenge he faced was power management. The single battery system could only store a limited amount of energy, enough for a few bulbs for several hours. He experimented with different circuits to optimize energy usage. Low-voltage LEDs were preferred, drawing minimal current while providing sufficient light. He also connected a secondary, smaller battery to power a phone charger, ensuring he could use his phone to review tutorials or document experiments without draining the main lighting system. The boy documented every detail meticulously. He drew diagrams showing how the solar panel connected to the batteries, how the timer and light sensor were wired, and the sequence of switching energy to the bulbs. These notes became a blueprint for future expansion, allowing him to envision adding more panels, batteries, and circuits without creating confusion or risking mistakes. Outside, the village remained dusty and quiet. Children played with sticks and stones in the dirt. Women carried water from the well, and men tended to small fields. Few paid attention to the hut, though some occasionally peeked inside the faint glow of the LED at night, curious about what was happening. The boy welcomed the isolation. It allowed him to focus and experiment without interruption. Each trip from the city added new resources. He brought extra wires, small tools, replacement fuses, and occasionally small solar cells he salvaged from broken devices. Every trip required careful planning, 50 kilometers each way, often by bicycle or local bus, carrying heavy materials and fragile equipment. The journey was tiring, but the reward was the progress he could make in the hut. The Quonset hut structure itself became part of his experiments. He noticed that the curved metal roof trapped heat during the day, which affected battery efficiency. To solve this, he built small vents along the top using discarded tin sheets, allowing hot air to escape while keeping rain and dust out. He even lined part of the floor with old wooden panels, reducing dust and creating a level workspace. Every detail, from insulation to wiring organization, contributed to a functional, sustainable environment. One night, after the lights had automatically turned on, he sat on the floor watching the soft glow illuminate the hut. The shadows of metal walls and wooden beams danced across the floor. He realized that even a single solar panel and a battery could transform a forgotten space into something functional, something full of life. The hut was no longer just a shelter. It had become a laboratory of ideas, a testing ground for energy solutions, and a space where creativity and determination met. The boy thought about the future. He imagined multiple panels connected in series, feeding a larger battery system, capable of powering more lights and small devices throughout the village. He envisioned a network where villagers could charge phones, study at night, and even light up homes. This vision fueled his daily work, pushing him to test new ideas, try different wiring, configurations, and invent small mechanisms to improve energy storage and usage. By the end of the second week, the first self-sustaining system was in place. One solar panel charging batteries, lights automatically turning on at sunset, phone charging available, and a safe, organized workspace. The hut, once abandoned and forgotten, had transformed into a beacon of possibility. The boy understood that small steps, careful planning, and persistence could turn even the most unlikely spaces into sources of innovation and hope. The glow of the LED lights at night symbolized more than energy. It represented potential, perseverance, and progress. Even in the quiet, dusty village, a small spark of ingenuity could illuminate not only a hut but an entire vision for change. With this first success, the foundation was laid for something much larger, a system that could one day bring electricity, light, and opportunity to the village beyond the Quonset hut. After successfully setting up the first solar panel and battery system, the hut felt alive in a way it never had before. Each day brought new sunlight, each night a soft glow of energy. The boy realized that one panel was only the beginning. He began sketching plans for a larger solar array, a system that could provide more energy, power multiple bulbs, and even charge devices for villagers. His first step was collecting more materials. On his city trips, he searched through workshops, repair shops, and recycling centers for discarded panels, old batteries, and broken wires. Some panels were cracked, others partially burnt out. But he had learned to test each one carefully, repair what could be fixed, and discard the rest. He carried these items back to the village, traveling the same 50 kilometers, sometimes by bicycle, other times by the bus that rumbled along the dusty roads. Each trip required planning. Heavy panels had to be secured carefully, batteries padded to prevent short circuits, and wires rolled neatly to avoid tangling. Back in the hut, he began expanding the solar system. He mounted additional panels on wooden frames next to the hut, angled perfectly to catch sunlight throughout the day. Small reflectors made from aluminum sheets increased sunlight absorption, directing more energy to the batteries. He also connected multiple batteries in parallel to store more energy, allowing the lights to run longer at night. The complexity increased. He had to ensure that no battery was overcharged, that voltage remained safe for the LEDs, and that energy could flow efficiently to both the lights and phone chargers. One challenge he faced was energy management at night. The single-panel system had relied on a basic timer and light sensor, but now with multiple panels and batteries, he needed a more robust nightlight system. Using scraps from old devices, he built a small relay system. During the day, energy charged the batteries. When light levels dropped, the relay triggered all LED circuits simultaneously, ensuring the entire hut lit up. He included safety mechanisms, like fuses and manual overrides, so the system wouldn't fail if one battery or panel malfunctioned. The hut was no longer a single-room lab, it had become a small energy hub. He added multiple LED bulbs, carefully distributing them so every corner of the room was illuminated. Workspaces, reading areas, and even corners previously ignored were now bright and functional. He designed a small cable channel system to organize wiring, preventing tangling or damage. Each cable was labeled and tested to ensure energy efficiency and safety. Outside, the hut began to draw attention. Curious villagers occasionally peeked in at night, observing the soft glow emanating from the previously dark structure. The boy welcomed the curiosity but maintained focus. He began thinking about small devices villagers could use, like portable lamps, charging stations for phones, or even small fans powered by the solar setup. His imagination grew alongside the system, transforming simple light into a network of possibilities. He also realized that the environment affected performance. Dust settling on panels reduced efficiency. Strong winds could loosen frames, and temperature fluctuations impacted battery performance. To counter these problems, he built small protective structures, wooden windbreaks, dust covers, and ventilated battery casings. Every day he inspected the panels, cleaned surfaces, tightened brackets, and checked connections. This routine became as important as the experiments themselves. The boy experimented with energy distribution, learning which circuits consumed the least power, how LEDs could be combined for maximum brightness without overloading the batteries, and how to prioritize energy for essential devices. He even connected a small low-power fan near the workbench, powered by the secondary battery system, keeping the hut cool during hot afternoons. Each small addition was tested, adjusted, and documented meticulously in his notebooks. Every city trip added new knowledge. Tutorials downloaded from YouTube guided him on battery maintenance, solar efficiency, and creative wiring solutions. He learned about charge controllers, voltage regulation, and simple relay circuits, adapting these concepts to the limited resources in the village. Using trial and error, he developed a hybrid system combining multiple batteries, solar panels, timers, and sensors to ensure reliable power both day and night. The hut transformed further as he created modular panel frames, allowing him to expand the system gradually. Each frame held 2 or 3 panels and could be connected to the main battery network. This modular approach meant that if one panel or frame failed, the rest of the system remained functional. He tested different angles, orientations, and even added small reflective surfaces to redirect sunlight onto panels, partially shaded by trees or structures. By the end of the first week of expansion, the hut was no longer just a room with one light. Multiple LEDs glowed at night, small fans circulated air, and phone charging was possible without interrupting the main lighting system. The boy had created a mini solar station, completely self-sustaining, reliable, and scalable. The hut had become a model of energy independence in the dusty village. Even with all these improvements, challenges remained. Heavy storms could damage panels, dust could reduce efficiency, and battery degradation was inevitable. But each problem was met with a solution. Reinforced frames, regular cleaning routines, and careful monitoring of voltage levels. The hut was alive with energy, ideas, and progress, a true testament to ingenuity, determination, and creativity. The glow at night had a symbolic meaning now. It wasn't just light. It represented hope, knowledge, and the possibility of change. The boy's experiments were no longer confined to a single room. They were laying the groundwork for something larger, a system that could one day extend to the village, bringing light, power, and opportunity to everyone. As the solar system grew, the hut became a central point of innovation. The boy realized that the energy generated could do more than just light his workspace. It could gradually benefit the village itself. He began thinking about mini solar grids, small circuits that could provide power to other houses nearby. Using spare panels, batteries, and wiring, he designed extension lines that could eventually carry electricity, safely to the homes closest to the hut. He labeled each wire, tested voltage flow, and ensured fuses were in place to prevent overloads or accidental damage. One night, while monitoring the LED lights, he noticed a problem. The batteries drained faster than expected during cloudy nights. To address this, he experimented with energy storage optimization. He connected a secondary bank of high-capacity batteries to the main system and implemented a load priority system. Essential bulbs and phone chargers would draw energy first, while less critical devices would activate only if surplus energy was available. He also devised a small indicator using old LEDs to show battery status, making it easier to monitor power at a glance. The boy also developed a creative nightlight mechanism for the village. Since villagers had no electricity and often needed light after sunset, he designed portable battery-powered lanterns. These lanterns could be charged in the hut and carried to homes, allowing children to study and families to perform chores safely. Small hooks and handles were added so lanterns could hang from ceilings or be placed on tables. This invention quickly became one of his most practical achievements. During daylight hours, he continued panel maintenance and optimization. Dust storms frequently reduced efficiency, so he constructed sliding protective covers for the panels. Using pulleys, these covers could be drawn back during full sunlight and closed during dust or rain. He also experimented with reflective surfaces. Tin sheets angled carefully could redirect sunlight onto panels shaded by trees or neighboring structures, increasing overall energy capture. Community curiosity grew. Some villagers, initially skeptical, began asking questions. The boy took this as an opportunity to teach and demonstrate simple principles of electricity. He showed how the solar panels worked, how batteries stored energy, and how LED bulbs could illuminate a room without relying on the city's electricity. Children watched wide-eyed as the hut glowed at night, fascinated by the glowing bulbs powered purely by sunlight. A few villagers offered old wires, scrap metal, or empty batteries they had lying around. Slowly, the hut began to feel like a small hub of learning, energy, and collaboration. The boy's experiments didn't stop at lighting. He created small, energy-efficient devices: a low-power fan for hot afternoons, a mini water pump for watering plants around the hut, and a charging station for phones and radios. Each device was carefully connected to the main solar battery system, tested for safety and documented meticulously. By combining careful planning with simple materials, he demonstrated that even a small, dusty hut could serve as a mini innovation center. Environmental challenges required constant problem-solving. Heavy rains occasionally threatened to damage the panels, so he built protective slanted covers with scrap metal and wooden supports. Strong winds could loosen wires or tilt panels, so he reinforced frames with metal brackets and angled stakes driven into the ground. Temperature changes affected battery efficiency, so he created ventilated enclosures with small gaps, covered by mesh to protect from dust while allowing airflow. Each challenge was met with a practical solution, proving that observation, creativity, and persistence could overcome limitations. As weeks passed, the solar system became modular and scalable. Each panel frame could be connected or disconnected without disrupting the rest of the system. This meant maintenance could be performed on individual panels or batteries without shutting down the entire network. He also experimented with combining batteries in series and parallel to maximize storage while keeping voltage levels stable. At night, the glow of the hut became symbolic. Children would gather nearby, sometimes peeking through cracks in the door, amazed that the building could shine brightly without any external electricity source. Parents began to see the potential too. Small lights meant safer paths after sunset, opportunities for study, and a glimpse of innovation. The hut, once abandoned and forgotten, now stood as a beacon of possibility for the entire community. The boy's notebooks filled with sketches, diagrams, and calculations. He recorded battery capacity, panel efficiency, LED configurations, and wiring sequences. Each diagram was a blueprint for the next phase, extending the system further into the village, creating multiple charging stations, and perhaps even powering small communal devices, like lamps in the central well or fans in common areas. By the end of Part 2, the hut was transformed. A mini solar station with multiple panels, multiple batteries, automated nightlight system, portable lanterns for villagers, and small devices enhancing comfort and usability. The boy had not only solved the problem of lighting for himself, but had laid the groundwork for community-level energy access, all built from discarded materials, ingenuity, and careful observation. Even in the quiet village, the hut's glow symbolized more than energy. It was hope, progress, and the demonstration that knowledge and creativity can overcome scarcity. Dusty winds could still blow, storms could still batter the panels, and challenges would continue to arise. But the foundation for a brighter, illuminated village had been firmly established. Months had passed since the first solar panel glowed in the Quonset hut. The boy had perfected the battery system, optimized the panels, and experimented with small devices. Each success encouraged him to dream bigger. One day, as he sat sketching in the soft glow of the LED lights, he imagined a giant network of solar panels, hundreds, maybe even 1,000 panels, feeding energy to the entire village and beyond. It seemed impossible at first, but he could already see the blueprint in his mind. He began planning carefully. To achieve such a massive setup, he needed modular panels, frames that could be assembled quickly, batteries that could be combined safely, and circuits that could handle large amounts of energy without failure. He drew diagrams showing series and parallel battery connections, energy routing to lights and devices, and automated switching mechanisms for nighttime lighting. Every line and measurement was meticulously noted. Mistakes could be catastrophic in such a large system. The first step was scaling the current system. He added more frames next to the hut, each holding 3 to 4 panels. Using pulleys and adjustable supports, he could tilt them throughout the day to capture maximum sunlight. Small reflectors redirected light onto shaded panels. Batteries were connected in groups, forming an expanding network capable of storing enormous amounts of energy. He also built extra protective covers, ventilation gaps, and dust shields to ensure durability in the dusty village environment. To power the village at night, he expanded the automated nightlight system. Sensors were positioned to detect ambient light levels, triggering the network of LEDs, lanterns, and small appliances to turn on simultaneously. He implemented a load balancing system, so critical devices like lamps in homes or charging stations for phones always received power first, while less essential devices operated only if surplus energy was available. Safety fuses and manual overrides prevented overloading or accidental damage. The villagers, initially curious, now became actively involved. Children watched him wire circuits, learning simple principles of electricity and energy storage. Some villagers brought old devices, broken panels, or batteries to donate. They watched as the hut glowed brighter each night, fascinated by the transformation. Inspired by the boy's ingenuity, they started helping with small tasks, cleaning panels, carrying supplies, and observing voltage meters. Slowly, the hut was no longer just his project. It became a community endeavor. He also experimented with creative energy solutions. Since solar panels only generated electricity during daylight, he designed manual backup generators using small hand-crank motors, connecting them to the battery network. In emergencies or extended cloudy periods, villagers could rotate cranks for a few minutes to store extra energy, ensuring uninterrupted power at night. These innovations made the system both reliable and resilient. The boy's vision grew even larger. He imagined connecting nearby fields, the well, and homes to the solar network. He sketched designs for a mini village grid, where energy could flow from multiple huts and panels, stored in centralized battery banks, and distributed safely at night. He also designed portable solar lanterns and small, rechargeable devices that villagers could take home, study by, or use for essential tasks. Each panel frame was carefully engineered for easy expansion. The modular design allowed for hundreds of panels to be added gradually, one by one, without shutting down the existing network. The boy calculated voltage and current flow, ensuring that even with hundreds of panels, the batteries would not overload, and the nightlight system would continue functioning flawlessly. During the day, he monitored efficiency. Dust storms, wind, and extreme temperatures challenged the system constantly. Protective covers were reinforced, ventilation improved, and panels cleaned daily. He even created small brushes mounted on levers to sweep panels automatically as he walked by. Observing the environment closely, he adapted his designs continuously, improving durability and energy capture. The hut itself became a hub of innovation. Workbenches lined with tools, batteries, circuits, and scrap materials were carefully organized. Small devices, fans, chargers, lanterns, Water pumps were all connected to the expanding network. The boy tested everything thoroughly, ensuring no device drew excessive energy, and that nighttime lights always functioned safely. By the time he had installed dozens of panels, villagers could finally experience nighttime light for the first time in memory. Families could cook, children could study, and paths were illuminated safely. The soft glow of LED lamps extended beyond the hut, reaching nearby homes. Lanterns were distributed, providing portable light. It was a transformation the village had never imagined possible, and it sparked excitement, hope, and curiosity among everyone. The boy worked tirelessly day and night, planning the eventual goal, a 1,000-panel network. He realized that with careful expansion, modular design, community participation, and safety measures, the dream wasn't impossible. Each day added panels, connected batteries, improved circuits, and tested new devices. He designed a system where the solar energy of hundreds of panels could be stored safely and distributed intelligently, ensuring that even after long nights the lights would remain on. The villagers marveled at the transformation. The dusty hut, once forgotten and dark, had become a beacon of light, knowledge, and innovation. Children no longer feared the darkness. Families no longer struggled for simple tasks at night. The boy's determination, careful planning, and creativity had turned an abandoned hut into a mini power station, with real impact on people's lives. At night, the glow of hundreds of LEDs reflected on the dusty ground outside the hut. It was a symbol not just of energy, but of possibility, ingenuity, and perseverance. One boy, with nothing but scrap materials, a few salvaged solar panels, and relentless curiosity, had lit up an entire community. The boy knew that reaching the goal of 1,000 solar panels would take time, patience, and relentless effort, but every new panel added brought him closer. He carefully designed modular frames, each capable of holding 3 to 5 panels, and connected them to the expanding battery network. Safety remained his priority. Fuses, relays, and manual overrides were installed at every stage to prevent accidental overload or damage. Each panel was cleaned daily, brackets checked, and connections tested meticulously. As the network expanded, so did the impact on the village. For the first time, entire streets were bathed in soft, reliable light. Families could cook safely at night. Children studied under LED lamps, and pathways were illuminated, reducing accidents or fear in the dark. Portable solar lanterns were distributed to homes farther from the hut, ensuring that even the most distant families experienced the benefit. Villagers began to participate actively, carrying panels, cleaning them, or observing the boy's techniques. Slowly, the hut evolved into a community innovation hub, a place where learning and collaboration thrived. The boy's creative solutions became increasingly ingenious. To prevent battery drain during long cloudy periods, he added small manual crank generators. These allowed villagers to rotate a handle for a few minutes to generate electricity, supplementing solar power. He also built small reflectors that could be moved on levers to catch sunlight from angles blocked by trees or walls. Every invention aimed at maximizing energy efficiency while keeping the system safe and reliable. As more panels were added, he introduced automated distribution circuits. Energy from the large battery banks could now flow intelligently. Essential lights and devices operated first. Secondary lights only activated when surplus energy was available. Phone charging stations, small fans, and portable lanterns were all integrated into this network. The system was robust enough to handle hundreds of panels, and yet flexible for future expansion toward the dream of 1,000. The village had changed. Where once darkness ruled after sunset, now streets glowed with soft LEDs. Children played safely, women cooked and sewed by light, and men could repair tools or work on small projects after nightfall. The hut had become the heart of the village, and the boy, though unnamed, had become a quiet hero whose ingenuity reshaped their lives. To approach the 1,000-panel dream, he began training a few villagers. They learned to connect panels, maintain batteries, monitor voltage, and operate the nightlight system. Knowledge was spreading. The project was no longer dependent on a single pair of hands. Slowly, the idea of community-powered energy was taking shape, ensuring sustainability for years to come. Challenges continued to test him. Dust storms reduced efficiency, wind threatened panels, and heavy rains risked damage. To counter these, he built reinforced panel frames, sliding dust covers, and ventilated battery boxes. Protective levers allowed panels to be adjusted or shielded during extreme weather. He experimented with different angles, reflecting sunlight onto shaded panels, and even created a simple rotating brush system to clear dust automatically. Each innovation increased reliability, efficiency, and safety. At night, the hut shone brighter than ever. Multiple LED bulbs, portable lanterns, and village-connected lights glowed, powered entirely by solar energy and batteries. The boy watched as children studied, villagers cooked, and streets lit up, proof that ingenuity and perseverance could overcome scarcity. It was the culmination of months of hard work, careful observation, and creative problem-solving. The dream of 1,000 panels was approaching reality. Not all panels were installed yet, but the scalable, modular design meant that once resources were gathered, expansion would be seamless. The hut was prepared for this final leap. Frames, battery networks, circuits, and sensors all ready to integrate new panels safely and efficiently. The boy's inventions extended beyond electricity. Small solar-powered fans kept the hut cool. Water pumps provided irrigation for nearby gardens, and energy-efficient lanterns illuminated homes at night. Even simple wooden supports and reflectors were carefully engineered, demonstrating that creativity and observation could transform ordinary materials into powerful tools. By the final week, the village was almost entirely transformed. The hut, once dark and abandoned, now pulsed with life. Nighttime no longer meant fear or inactivity. It meant light, learning, and productivity. The glow from the hut spread like a beacon, reaching every corner, inspiring hope. Villagers began imagining what they could do next. Study longer, repair tools, even create small crafts at night, all thanks to the boy's innovation. Standing on the dusty path outside the hut one evening, the boy observed the soft orange and white glow spreading through the village. Each panel, battery, and LED represented effort, planning, and imagination. The dream of 1,000 panels was within sight, not just as a number, but as a symbol of potential, ingenuity, and perseverance. Even as he rested, he sketched ideas for the next expansion, thinking of ways to include solar-powered community devices, lamps at the well, small fans in common areas, and solar lanterns for every home. The hut was no longer just a workshop. It had become the center of a brighter future, proof that even in the most forgotten places, one determined individual could ignite change. The quiet village, once ruled by darkness, had been transformed into a glowing testament to knowledge, creativity, and hope. Dusty streets and old walls now reflected the soft light, and the boy's vision had become reality. A community illuminated by ingenuity, powered by the sun, and sustained by the persistence of one creative mind. In the final moments of Part 3, the boy looked around his hut. Panels lined every frame, batteries hummed softly, LED lights glowed in every corner, and lanterns were ready for homes far away. The 1,000-panel dream was not fully complete, but the foundation was perfect. The village, once forgotten, was alive with light, energy, and possibility, a place where darkness no longer dictated life. The boy smiled quietly. Every wire, panel, battery, and small invention had brought this vision to life. And in the glow of the hut, reflected on the dusty ground, lay the promise of a future brighter than anyone had imagined.